and welcome to Disorient. This video is the third in a three-part series on preventing suicide in the Asian American community. A content warning for suicide, suicidal ideation, and attempts in this video, general information, and some of my own personal experiences. If you find yourself or a loved one feeling suicidal or in mental health crisis, please reach out to your support system or a crisis hotline here or posted below. Please check in with yourself while watching this video and take a break if you have to. This video is not going anywhere, so you can always come back once you're ready. So, suicide and everything around it is scary, period. The Asian American community, myself included, is really struggling though when it comes to suicide prevention because we have a huge stigma around mental illness that can make talking about suicide feel basically impossible, and forget about seeking help for it. I myself first experienced suicidal ideation in college, and then I felt so absolutely terrified because thanks to this stigma, I barely knew anything about mental illness and only knew that feeling suicidal was very, very dangerous. And the scariest part for me was that I didn't know if help existed at all, or if I'd ever feel okay ever again. And I was really lucky I was able to make it to my college's emergency counseling hours and get the help that I needed. But even so, this stigma against mental illness and seeking help felt like a brick wall for years. And I just felt so broken and wrong for having ever felt suicidal. And the thing is that this stigma doesn't need to be here. If we open up the channels for more honest communication around mental health, then I really think we can break down the stigma in our community and reduce and even prevent suffering and maybe save lives. And so in the first two videos in this Preventing Suicide series, I talked about why people might feel suicidal and how we can help someone who is feeling suicidal. So what can we do when things are all right in our lives? During these calmer times, we can be proactive and educate ourselves about suicide prevention, which is just as important for suicide prevention as crisis support is. I think the best and most direct place for us to learn about suicide prevention within the context of our Asian American community is from those who have lived experience with mental illness themselves. Whether they've experienced suicidal ideation, I fall into that category, or who are suicide attempt survivors, like my incredible mentor, Pata Sugimoto, who is a mental health activist who does a whole lot of work on suicide prevention and racial equity. And a shout out for helping me with this video. Thank you so much. Pata is featured in a short documentary about her mental health journey, and I've put the link in the description below so you can hear her story. For those of us who are new to suicide prevention, listen to our stories. Take the understanding and insight that you find to grow your capacities to support others. I hope that you can discover that talking about feelings and struggles is okay, more than okay, when it's done in a supportive and realistic and hopeful way. And if you've felt suicidal before, I hope you can take comfort, like I have, in knowing you're not alone and that healing, although it's slow and hard, is possible. And now let's consider how we talk about suicide. There's a lot of language that we shouldn't use when we talk about suicide for a variety of reasons. If you remember one thing, remember this. Instead of saying committed suicide, use the phrase died by suicide or took their life, because someone who dies by suicide is not a criminal. Likewise, if someone survives a suicide attempt, please don't call that a failed or unsuccessful attempt. Surviving when your very life is in danger is not a failure. In the same vein, don't refer to suicide in extreme ways such as an epidemic or skyrocketing. Yes, suicide is a big problem, but it's much more useful to do what you realistically can to address it, like incorporate the things you learn in these videos into your life, rather than give in to fear and despair and panic. Meanwhile, Calling someone's death by suicide a successful or completed attempt wrongly suggests that dying by suicide is a good thing, as does glorifying or romanticizing suicide, such as saying they're in a better place now. Language like this is dangerous, especially in the news and social media, which so many people see, because it implies that suicide is a good, feasible option for people who are dealing with hopelessness or distress. And messaging like this can motivate others in crisis to attempt suicide. This is called suicide contagion. And this can lead to suicide clusters, which is multiple suicides happening in a geographic region or like in a close span of time. This is why it's also not a good idea to specify where and how someone died by suicide, because that too might encourage future suicides. So finding the right words to talk about suicide is a delicate balance. We have to figure out how to be compassionate without encouraging suicide. Sadly, suicide can happen in any community, and every time someone who's a part of your life dies by suicide, however close or distant they are, it hurts. As I mentioned in the first video in this series, for every person who dies by suicide, about 135 family, friends, and community members are deeply impacted. And we're all so connected that I'm sure the grief ripples far beyond that. Suicide loss can involve so much complicated pain, grief, and feelings of confusion, even anger and guilt. Processing and healing from this require time and kindness towards yourself, and this might include reaching out to supportive friends and family, journaling, or making art to process these feelings, joining a support group for suicide loss survivors, or finding a therapist and doing some therapy if you need that extra emotional support. And when things are good in your life, that is really a great time to nurture protective factors in your family, your friend circle, and your community. Some of these ways are finding positive and healthy coping skills that really work for you. Maybe it's yoga or running, snuggling your pet, taking a bath, drinking a cup of tea, the list goes on. Another thing is creating and maintaining positive connections and clear communication, including talking about your emotions with supportive friends and family and your community. You can encourage being proactive about seeking help instead of keeping struggles all to yourself. And yes, this includes mental health care. And another really important thing is validating people's inherent worth beyond their achievements and productivity. Another thing you can do is advocate for culturally sensitive healthcare and better healthcare access for those who face barriers, like our elders, disabled folks, and LGBTQ+ folks in our Asian American community and beyond. And one more thing is limiting access to dangerous means. If you must have dangerous items nearby, store them in securely locked and hard to reach places. Another great thing to do is to learn about mental health services in the town or city you live in, like, again, your local mental health crisis hotlines, peer support groups, therapists, and mental health care centers, etc. And to look up resources that are available on the internet, like virtual group therapy or peer support groups. This way, you'll already know some available options if someone in your life is having mental health struggles. You can also learn about other areas of mental illness by watching my other Disorient videos, or just by Google searching. And all of this helps because in this world of stigma, where it makes it so scary to talk about mental illness at all, anything you can learn about mental health and taking care of mental illness will help our community be healthier and be more well. And so since my first encounter with suicidal ideation in college, I've had some more run-ins with it, but I've been working really hard in therapy and in my life these past few years since to create a strong mental health support system for myself. And that support system helps me feel much safer when I'm struggling with suicidal ideation. Part of why I felt so terrified that first time I had suicidal ideation was because I felt so alone and so hopeless. I didn't know if anybody could or would help me, and I had no idea if the pain would ever end. And yes, suicidal ideation absolutely still feels scary when it comes around. And yes, that hopelessness still comes, but I'm much less consumed by it now because I have a better idea of what is going on in me, and I have a safety plan in place, and I have people I can trust who I know can help me. And even my parents, who barely knew anything about mental illness before, my whole journey started, they have over time learned and are more able to help me when I'm struggling in their small ways. I know I'm very lucky to have such strong support in my life. I know that everyone's situation is different, and that these really good supports can be really hard to come by. But I wanted to share my journey here with you to let you know that feeling suicidal doesn't doom you to despair, and that it is possible to get help, that help can exist, even in the moment when you think you deserve it the least. And I wish I could tell my college self these things. That's why I make these videos, and I'm grateful now that I don't have to wish that I could tell you wherever you're watching this from, because I've come to a good enough emotional place where I can make this video on suicide prevention, and I get to tell you right now that it's possible to experience suicidal feelings here and there, and also have a strong support system and live a fulfilling life where talking about pretty legit mental health struggles is okay. And so that possibility of feeling suicidal is actually something all of us can face, because we're living, feeling human beings who experience life's ups and downs and can and will die one day. So yes, we Asian Americans can feel suicidal. We can need help in the form of emergency mental health care, and we deserve and can receive that help to journey towards wellness. We are not a model minority, and so we're not immune to suffering. We're not always totally okay, and there are most definitely times when we really do need help. And yeah, even with a strong support system, feeling suicidal sucks. We don't need stigma on top of that, making it harder than it already is to talk about struggles and to get the help we need. So as an Asian American community and beyond, let's please learn about suicide prevention so that we can make our community one where suffering isn't automatically silenced and shamed and suppressed, but instead is met with compassion and help and healing. So yeah, thank you for joining me on this preventing suicide journey. I really hope you've learned something useful, and please take care of yourself. I'll see you next time.